Imagine a man so arrogant, so cruel, that he wouldn't even let my grandparents walk down their own street. He claimed the sidewalk was his, and every insult, every shove, every glare, they endured it in silence. Until the day my uncle arrived. That was the day everything turned red. If you've ever tasted that moment when someone finally gets what they deserve, this story is for you. Hit subscribe, smash that like button, and share in the comments the most satisfying moment of justice you've ever seen. Because today, you're about to witness the kind of revenge that legends are built on. This story comes from the 1970s, in a country where justice wasn't something you waited for from courts or lawyers. No, justice was something you had to take with your own two hands. And in my family, justice was never optional. It was blood-bound. Before I dive into the revenge itself, you need to know about the bloodline this story comes from. On my mother's side of the family, there was a woman, my great-grandmother, Mama Delia. Her name still gets whispered at family gatherings like a warning, like thunder on the horizon. Mama Delia was not the type of grandmother who baked cookies or told bedtime stories. She was a storm in human form, volcanic temper, sharp tongue, and fists that landed harder than her words. My dad used to say that with her, making even the smallest mistake wasn't just scoldings, it was a death sentence. Even though she married my great-grandfather, a respected Supreme Court magistrate, a man known for fairness and calm inside their home, his authority meant nothing. The second he walked through that door, he stopped being a judge and became another subject under Mama Delia's iron rule. Nothing was done without her approval, and no one dared to cross her. But one of her sons, my great-uncle Jose, did. Jose was the second son, and unlike his siblings who swallowed her anger in silence, he had fire of his own. He hated her cruelty, hated how she swung her power like a whip. And from the time he was young, he fought back. By the age of 15, he had made a vow. Never again will I let her mistreat me. But Mama Delia was not the kind of woman you could stand up to without consequences. One day, Jose must have done something that angered her. Nobody remembers exactly what. What they do remember is her solution. Since he was now taller, stronger, no longer a boy she could beat with her own hands. She called in a police officer, and she instructed that officer, beat my son until he remembers who runs this house. That day was the last day Jose ever lived under his mother's roof. He packed up his pain, his pride, and left. But even leaving couldn't fully sever him from family. In our culture, blood always drags you back one way or another. 4 years later, my great-grandparents moved into a new home, hoping perhaps for peace. But next door lived Reuben. Now, Reuben was 25 years old, built like a mountain, and completely worthless otherwise. He didn't work, didn't study, didn't help his parents. His entire existence revolved around pumping iron until his body looked like a caricature of muscle. Picture an Andean Arnold Schwarzenegger with none of the charm, none of the discipline, and all of the arrogance. And for some reason, whether it was something Mama Delia said, or simply because he was rotten, Reuben decided my grandparents were his favorite target. Every time they walked by, he spat insults. He shouted obscenities, mocked their age, their steps, their dignity. He claimed the sidewalk was his. Imagine that, elderly people shuffling home, humiliated just for existing near this man, and yet they never told anyone. Not the family, not even their own children. They carried that shame silently, hoping maybe the storm would pass. But storms don't pass when you stay silent. They grow. On the day everything changed, my great-grandparents were walking home again. And, like clockwork, Reuben unleashed his daily barrage, taunts, filth, shoving them toward the edge of the street as they fumbled for their keys. But this time, fate had other plans. At that exact moment, Jose, now 19, hardened by years of surviving on his own, arrived to visit his father. He turned the corner, saw his aging parents bowed under the weight of insults, and in that instant, his world went black. And then, red. The bloodline of Mama Delia surged alive in him. Jose charged without hesitation. A fist flew, crack, and Reuben barely blinked. Like swatting a fly, Reuben struck back. Jose went down hard, sprawled in the dust. But here's the thing. Jose had grown up under Mama Delia's rule. Pain was no stranger to him. He knew bruises, he knew blood, he knew the sharp sting of humiliation, and he had long since learned that you only truly lose when you stop standing back up. So he rose again. The second clash, same result. Another punch, another fall. Blood now trickled from his lip, but Jose's eyes only burned brighter. The third clash, the same. Down again, to the gasps of neighbors peeking through curtains, whispering about the reckless boy daring to challenge the beast next door. Anyone else would have quit. But Jose was not anyone else. With Ruben laughing, taunting, towering above him, Jose wiped the blood from his mouth. His body screamed to stop. His pride begged him not to. And then, in a split second of instinct, he lunged, not with fists, but with a well-aimed kick. His boot crashed into Ruben's shin. It wasn't enough to topple him, but it was enough to stagger. And in that single moment of imbalance, the tide turned. Jose leapt onto Ruben's back, wrapping his arms around the giant's head like a rider taming a bull. He slammed Ruben's skull against the pavement once, twice, again. The crack of bone against stone echoed through the street. Teeth scattered. Blood poured. The Andean giant, who had terrorized frail old people, was suddenly nothing more than a broken man being dragged down by someone half his size. But Jose wasn't finished. Fueled by years of swallowed pain, by the humiliation of his parents, by the memory of police batons ordered by his own mother, Jose grabbed Ruben by the hair and dragged him across the street. Once, twice, his body thudded against the pavement, leaving streaks of blood and shattered pride behind him. Neighbors watched in stunned silence. Some horrified, some secretly thrilled. It took Jose's older brother physically restraining him to stop the assault before it turned into execution. Ruben was unrecognizable when they loaded him into the hospital bed. His jaw mangled, teeth missing, face swollen and deformed beyond recognition. Jose disappeared for a week, letting the dust settle, avoiding immediate retaliation. And when he finally returned, Ruben never bothered my great-grandparents again. In fact, he never bothered anyone again. The street was quiet, safe. My great-grandparents, for the first time, could walk home without fear. But did this heal Jose's relationship with Mama Delia? Not at all. She never softened, never apologized, never approved. And maybe Jose never expected her to. Because sometimes, revenge isn't about winning someone's approval. Sometimes it's about reclaiming dignity, about saying, "You will never hurt us again." And that's exactly what he did. The most satisfying part? Watching how quickly fear changes people. The man who once owned the sidewalk, who barked and spat at frail elders, now avoided their gaze. The predator had been caged, and Jose, though bloodied, though battered, walked away with something Ruben never had: respect. Respect from his siblings, from his father, from every single neighbor who saw that no one could break the bloodline of Mama Delia without consequences. Sometimes justice doesn't come in courtrooms or with signatures on paper. Sometimes it comes with grit, with defiance, with the simple refusal to stay down after the third punch. And sometimes, that's the only language bullies will ever understand. So what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed, or wished you could see? Drop your story in the comments. I read everyone. Hit subscribe for more real stories where justice isn't given, it's taken. And don't forget to like this video if you believe bullies always get what's coming to them in the end.